Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios. We're a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur, been involved in several unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So today, I'd like to introduce my incredible guest. Rafeh Saleh is launched Cubit Ventures and is a founder institute in Egypt, is an advisor to Toronto-based Loyal VC, sat on Falak Startups board and on Egypt Ventures governance committee. He led one of the most successful consulting firms in Egypt and is an experienced executive, entrepreneur, and management consultant, where he advised numerous companies of all sizes on growth, turnaround, and business restructuring strategies. So with that, I'd like to bring him on board. Hello, Raf. How are you doing today?
Hey, Gary. Thank you for having me. And I didn't know what GSD stands for. Now I know it's
Get you done. That's great to have you. So tell me a little bit about your journey. You actually, so you got your business degree in Cairo, and then you went to Paris. How was that going from Cairo to Paris? What was that experience like?
Well, it was a joint program between Cairo and Paris. So we only spent one semester actually in Paris and the rest was in Cairo. But having said that, I was born in Paris. I speak French. So it did work out well for me.
Oh, wow. And you were born in Paris. So are you French or are you Egyptian?
No, I'm 100% Egyptian.
Oh, that's great. So you went from there, you worked with AAA Securities and spent some time there, and you were doing stock trading. Is that what that is?
Yep. We started off with stock trading, and then eventually I joined the sister company of that, Falcon, which was a portfolio management company as well.
And how was that? How was it jump from securities to portfolio management?
It was a natural progression because we were managing securities, so it just made sense. They were sister companies. That was my first job out of school. That was early in the days. The stock market law had just been launched in Egypt, and everything was crazy back then. So when I look back at those crazy days and I miss them, now I'm back into the crazy era of startups in Egypt. So
great opportunity in Egypt, right? Lots of opportunities. So you went to, you went over and did consulting. How did you go from securities to doing synergy consulting? What was that about?
Well, basically, I left the securities industry, the stock market industry, basically. Because I just back then the market wasn't regulated enough, so I just didn't want to be part of that sort of a market back then. Now it's totally regulated, and then basically I had also started because I working in consulting and in securities. You tend to see so many businesses. You tend to read financial statements of different businesses. You tend to understand how these businesses are run, how they're structured, what works, what doesn't work, because according to that, you start giving advice to your clients. And with that, I started building my consulting know-how practice. It was a private practice, and this is what got me into consulting eventually.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so I get that. But how in the world did you go to Dale Carnegie?
Oh, okay. So you've done your homework then. Well, Dale Carnegie, it's one of the best things I did in my life. I worked with Dale Carnegie for around 5 years. It was a part-time job. In my opinion, Dale Carnegie is one of the best soft skills training programs. I was lucky to have met a team from Dale Carnegie at some point of time who I was introduced to them, and they thought, they saw in me that I can be a good trainer. So I went into the training of trainers program, and then I became a trainer. And with that, I got to work with a lot of companies of all shapes and sizes. I also, towards the end, I was also training Dale Carnegie trainers. So I was a trainer of trainers myself. But
So,
it taught me so much across life.
Rafa, what did you learn? Well, like, what are some of the lessons you learned from doing a Dale Carnegie training? What are, like, if you take the top three lessons, what are they?
Oh, well, the program is mostly focused around people skills, communication skills, leadership skills, and self confidence. And so it's mostly about the communication and people skills. This is what I got to learn. Things like, for example, I always tend to explain the how before the why before the how. So when I ask something of anyone, I tend to explain why I need that before I explain what is needed. So that's like it just became engraved in the way I communicate with
And
people.
does that help a lot for folks? Does it make them buy into it more? Is that why you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to know the reason you're doing anything. You can't speak with people as if they're children and just tell them to do stuff. But I also use that as a parent as well. So I always tend to explain to my kids the why and the how before the what.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. What else? What other kind of lessons? That's a great why
So,
between before and tell them why something needs. What else did you learn?
and the one other very very significant thing is to listen and listen well, listen with a lot of empathy, listen to learn, to understand, and to how do I put that? Be on the same table with whoever is speaking with you, and that helped me a lot later on as a consultant, because consulting is all about listening actually.
Wow, that's great. So yeah, God gave you two ears and a mouth for a reason.
Yep.
That's great. All right, so you did that, and then you did consulting. You did some more consulting. It said lead consultant, management consulting practice. What kind of practice was it?
So basically, it was a strategy practice. We worked with a multitude of industries. I was mostly focused on the tech industry. So back then, it was more like IT and communications. It wasn't called tech. So I consulted to everything from call centers, contact centers, telcos, software companies, hardware companies. This was mostly my domain. And then was when I joined the CID Consulting, which is still is by virtue of volume the largest consulting firm in Egypt. And I stayed with the company for almost over 8 years. And towards the last 2 years, I was the managing partner of the company.
And so, did you like it? Was it interesting?
Oh yes, very much. You're looking at different industries every day, and you're looking at different practices. So one day you're consulting to a tech company on strategy. The following day you're consulting to a real estate company on structure or on process. So it's such a it's endless exposure.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you did that. Then you went over consulting pad, so another consulting platform with a whole group of consultants, working primarily in the MENA region. Did you like that? Was it interesting?
I founded that. It was a typical marketplace. So that was my first jump into the startup world. But let me go one step back and why I did that and why I was doing everything. While working in consulting, I was enjoying my job tremendously. I was mostly towards the end. I was mostly consulting to like government entities, multinationals, large corporates, and
Hmm.
you can see the results of your work very much delayed, a couple of years later. But I was also mentoring startups. I started off mentoring through a program with American University in Cairo called VClab. I was mentoring startups there, and the acid test I would do was ask them to come to my office 7 o'clock in the morning. Uh, Bless you. If they do show up on time, I help out. If they start coming up with excuses, because 7 o'clock in the morning is a bit unorthodox in Egypt, I just don't follow through. Uh, and I got addicted. This was what was getting me up in the morning. So I wanted to be part of this startup ecosystem, part of the startup world, where when you're talking with startups, and again you're throwing ideas at them, they are the ones taking the decisions. They are the ones acting upon those decisions that they took. But
Hmm.
the results, I sit with a startup, we discuss something, they throw in the ideas, not me, and then a week later they come and say we've done this and that, and then another couple of weeks later they come and say we've achieved this because of that. So we see the impact, very short-term impact, and that was very, very exciting to me. So I decided I want to go into this world, leave the traditional consulting industry and get into this world. And at some point of time, I told my wife, I'm crazy about what I'm doing in the morning and those early mornings with startups, and I want to do that full time. I want to get into venture capital, and I want to quit my job and just jump into it.
What did she say, Rafeh? What was it? What did she really say? Come on.
Oh yeah, she said it was late at night, and I think she wasn't really focused with what I was saying. So she said, "Yeah, why not?" And the following morning, I submitted my resignation. It took another year and a half to leave my job, but at least I had taken the decision. And I did two things. So I launched Consulting Pad, and I launched the local chapter of the Founder Institute in Egypt. So I wanted to get so much into this ecosystem. I also started speaking with my friends who ran venture capital funds, and I wanted in, and they said, no, you don't have you're too senior in position or age to come in anything but a partner, but you don't have the partner experience when it comes to venture capital. So I basically hacked my way into venture capital, and I couldn't tell you that story if you wish as well.
Wow, that's amazing. So you hacked your way into venture capital. You went to Egypt Ventures. So is that where you hacked to? Was Egypt Ventures?
Well, yeah, it was one thing led to the other. So I launched a Consulting Pad. It was a marketplace connecting MBA grads from top 50 business schools across the world and matching them to mid-sized businesses in our part of the world, mostly North Africa. We had clients in Egypt, in Morocco, in Tunisia, and in Saudi Arabia. So that was, and I promise you, I did every single mistake in the book. Everything I had told other founders not to do, I did, because I thought I'm Mr. Know-it-all. I'm a management consulting. I've seen it all, but I did every mistake you can imagine. And I also launched Founders too, because I wanted to get engaged into the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Now, through Founder Institute, I got to meet Falak Startups, which is basically owned by Egypt Ventures. And Falak Startups is one of the largest seed accelerators in Egypt. And I struck a deal with them. I told them, listen, we need a space to work for Founder Institute. So provide us with space, and your guys can come and attend, your founders can come and attend our sessions. So they're not part of the program, but they can attend the sessions. It was win-win for everyone, because we get space, they get to attend the sessions and see the mentors, but also our portfolio companies in Founder Institute get to meet the Falak portfolio companies and sit with them, who are like a couple of steps ahead of them. So it was a win-win for everyone. And then this is how the relationship was built. And then Falak asked me to sit on the board, which I did. With Falak Startups, we started looking at different deals as well. And I also worked on setting up a governance model for them. Mm-hmm. And then Egypt Ventures, which basically owns 99% of Falak, asked me to replicate that same governance model to Egypt Ventures. So I sat on their governance committee doing that.
Wow.
So this is how one thing led to the other.
Well, you got a lot of one things lead to another, that's for sure. So you did the Founders Institute. Then what about Loyal VC? You're working with this Toronto-based venture capital group. What's the deal with them? I know you're an advisor, but what's that all about?
Well, basically, Loyal VC invests in companies across the world, very early stage. You have to be one of two things. You're either a Founder Institute graduate or you're an INSEAD business school graduate. So basically, I know the founder of Loyal VC very well, because he ran a chapter with Founder Institute in Toronto as well at some point of time. Mm-hmm. And because he looks at Founder Institute graduates, so it was natural that we get in touch. But also I was basically helping out with anything that he's, any sort of deal flow from North Africa, or any of those portfolio companies that need support in our part of the world. They just get in touch with me and I help them out. So this is, that was also another way of me engaging into the ecosystem more and more. It gave me a lot of international perspective as well. All that with a big dream of getting into venture capital. But then the magic happened. Through Founder Institute, we used to attend a weekly meeting with Founder Institute because I was part of a big strategy committee that was setting the Founder Institute global strategy. Back then, we were aiming to reach 150 chapters. Now it's over 220 chapters across 80 countries. But then the notion came up in this meeting where we said, okay, so Founder Institute is the largest producer of startups from scratch. So it's not YC, because YC already takes companies that are up and running, but Founder Institute helps idea stage companies. Why don't we look at the other side of the equation, which is the funding side? And we found a big gap in the pre-Series A type of funding, crossing that chasm, and that is because of the lack of enough micro across the world. So Founder Institute decided to do something about it and create a program. And then, so it was committee we used to meet every week, and then that was the end of it. And then a few months later, I get an email from Founder Institute saying we've created VClab, which is an accelerator for emerging fund managers. If you'd like to, and these are the details, and click here if you'd like to apply. And before even reading the rest of the email, I had clicked and started building the application. I went into the program. It was by invitation. It was first cohort by invitation only. I think 500 people were invited, 200 applied. 50 of us were selected to start the program. We went through the program, and just like Founder Studio have certain milestones in order to graduate, I went through the whole program, 14 weeks, and I was one of the 15 companies that graduated. But the real magic that happened is not just that. Paul Bregel was one of our super mentors in the program. This is how I got to meet Paul, and then eventually he became a partner in Cubit Ventures, and basically we built it together, as he was advising me from day one on building the thesis and structure and everything.
Wow, that's interesting. So what's happening in Egypt? Why is Egypt and why is this a good time?
I totally believe we're at the right place at the right time. It's a very big country. We have over 100 million population. It's 106 and counting. So if you ask me a month from now, that number would have changed. Extreme mobile penetration across the population, over 109%. It never stopped growing. So now it's growing at 6.6% GDP. Even back in 2011, when we had the revolution, and we had from 2011 to 2013, huge shakeup. The economy never stopped growing. It's just that we're very resourceful, we're very resilient, and we've proven it. And we've proven it during COVID, of course, as well. Huge talent pool. So we are the center of tech talent for the Middle East and Africa.
Why is that, Rafeh? Why is that?
We have very good technical schools. So a lot of good universities producing very good talent.
And then, what about Egyptian founders? How do they compare to Silicon Valley founders?
They're very, very resilient, very resourceful, because Egyptian founders from day one, the Egyptian population is mostly in lower income brackets, and that is always a challenge. You have to be resourceful. If you're in a class of 120 kids, you have to be resourceful to stand out. If you're crossing the street and it's extremely crowded and cars coming from all directions, you have to be resourceful. So it's part of our DNA. We're very African in that sense. I mean, that the beauty of Egypt is that we're Middle East, we're Mediterranean, we're African as well, and we have the best of each. So being Middle East, we have access to capital and access to international markets. Being Mediterranean, we have access to knowledge and access to the West and access to education. So, for example, there are very, very, very good schools in Egypt: French schools, English, British schools, American schools. But also being part of Africa, it provides a huge consumer base and a huge opportunity for disruption. So in spite of everything, there's still so much room for infrastructure improvement across everything. And now in today's world, it is startups and tech companies that are going to take that forward. Additionally to that, there's a huge government mandate of financial inclusion coupled with digital transformation. So, for example, now all companies are mandated to produce digital invoices. Once you need to digitize your invoicing, you need to basically build your CRM. You need to, your supplier has to build a CRM and digitize. You have to connect together. And then the whole value chain becomes digital. And that is all a massive opportunity for the tech sector.
Interesting. So, what you say resourceful? What do you mean by resourceful with the Egyptian founders? What does resourceful mean?
With minimal resources, you can achieve so much. So with little funding, a smaller team, you'll just work around the clock. You'll make things work. You'll go the extra mile and call every possible human being you can reach out to. It's that grit that you see in founders. And that's what we see in Egypt. We see founders pivoting once and twice and three times until they crack it, and until they reach that product market fit that has been lacking in the beginning.
Are they that flexible that they'll pivot like that? Because some cultures they don't want to pivot.
Well, here they're very agile. They're it's they do. We've seen a lot of pivots across most successful founders have actually pivoted at least once before they reached their success.
So, what made you decide to get into VC? Did you wake up one day? You said told your wife one night, and then the next morning you quit your job, and it took you a year and a half to get out. But how did you decide? What made you decide? What was that moment you said, "Aha, I'm going to do it"?
Working with startups. It is working with young founders who are very passionate about what they're building, who are very creative, and very resourceful. That level of passion is basically it's contagious. When I sit with such a founder early in the morning, I end up being passionate throughout the full day. So yeah, that was basically it.
No, that's great. And what made you decide, to create Cubit? Did you just wake up one morning with that and just say, "Oh, I think I'm going to call Cubit and I'm going to start this"? How did you get your financing, your original round? How big is your fund right now? That kind of thing.
Well, basically, I've been wanting, as I mentioned earlier, I've been wanting to get into VC for so long. Sometimes it's kind of a natural progression from management consulting, because now instead of just consulting and taking fees, it's as if you're consulting and taking equity and being a partner to the entity you're consulting to. So I've been wanting to do that for so long. And then the VClab program was basically the platform upon which I started building Cubit Ventures.
Got it.
So basically, it's a Cubit Ventures were a $20 million target fund, Egypt focused, with a small allocation to North Africa in preparation for Fund 2, where we come in at seed to pre-series A stage, which is the largest gap in Egypt. We're agnostic, so it's more about the business model and the criteria we look at. Basically, that's it. And if you mentioned how did I kick it off?
Yeah.
Well, basically, the standard. You reach out to every person you know, knock all possible doors until you get your first close. So our first close is mostly from individuals, high net worth individuals. Not the super high net worth, not family offices, just, typically angel investors. So they've done a few angel investments. And basically my pitch to them is, instead of putting, if you want to invest in, instead of putting your next ticket into one company, put it into 20 companies and let someone else do the homework for you, because you don't have the time. They already have their own job. And investing is hard work. They typically, angel investors learn that with time. In the beginning, you think that angel investing or investing is just an easy job. You're sitting there and startups come to you and then you get to pick and choose. Whereas in reality, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of comparisons. There's a lot of homework you do. So was my first pitch. But then as we started quickly, we want to do a very quick close and basically transition from being a PowerPoint to being a fund, an actual fund, and start investing very quickly. So we did that, and now we're doing our second close from institutional investors. The only, by the way, institutional investor I have in my first close is Mesleska, Egypt, which is the French university where I did my MBA.
Interesting.
So I came in as an LP as well.
So what's your investment thesis at Cubit?
So basically, Egypt focused seed stage. We look at founders that are at the right place at the right time. We want companies. It's important for us to look at companies that are solving real problems, acute problems, and we need to ensure from day one that whatever they're doing is scalable. So it's globally scalable, because this is what we bring to the table. We're a team. I've built we've built a network of venture partners. We've built a network of advisors, and they're spread across the world. I have my Founder Institute network as well. Paul he co-founded 6 other funds across the world. We have that network as well. We bring all that to our portfolio companies. So that's why from day one, we want to look at a company that can scale globally. And from a solution perspective, the solution is scalable globally. So they may be still in an early stage, still limited numbers, but growing in a couple of markets. But we can see that they have the potential to go into 10, 12 markets, for example, or scale globally. This is like our sweet spot of companies we look for. We also like to ensure that tech talent is part of the core team from day one. We're not happy with companies that basically outsource their tech. We want them to own their tech, so they can outsource part of their tech, but at least the product ownership should be in-house.
Got it. So we're coming up to the top of the show. What are your closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Well, easiest thing to get hold of me is through our website or through my email, rafeh@cubit.vc. We're happy to support anyone coming to Egypt. Happy to support anyone who's willing to support our portfolio companies expand globally. Happy to work with that. We're open for international exposure for ourselves and for our portfolio companies.
No, that's great. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today. It's been fascinating. You got a rich background, to say the least, so it's great. And to my audience, all my audience out there, my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios. Thanks for joining another exciting edition. Stay tuned. I'll be back again next Tuesday. Stay happy, stay safe, and most importantly, stay healthy. And I'll be back at you soon. Thanks, Rafeh. Really appreciate you taking your time.
Thank you very much, Gary, for hosting.